The stars looked different through the observation window of the Times Endeavor's Promise *. Captain Sarah Chen had been watching them for 3 months now, ever since her crew left Earth's orbit to mine ice from the outer system. It was supposed to be a simple job: harvest frozen water from distant asteroids, process it into fuel, and return home. Nothing complicated. Nothing dangerous. She was wrong. The alarm came without warning. Red lights flooded the small ship's bridge. Marcus Webb, their engineer, jumped from his seat and stared at his console with wide eyes. "Captain, we have a contact. Big one." It just appeared out of nowhere. Sarah felt her heart beat faster. Size, 2 kilometers long, maybe more. Marcus's hands shook as he typed. "Captain, nothing we have should be that big. Nothing human." The communications officer, Lieutenant Parks, turned to face her. His dark skin had gone pale. "Captain, they're hailing us, but it's not any language in our database. The computer is trying to translate." Sarah stood up and straightened her uniform. 15 people were on this ship. 15 people who trusted her to keep them safe. She pressed the button to open a channel. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of Earth Vessel Times Endeavor's Promise *. We are a civilian research and mining ship. Please identify yourself." The response came in broken English, processed through some kind of translation system. The voice was strange, with too many sounds that didn't quite fit together. "Greetings, primitive vessel. We are the Vrin Collective. You have been selected for study. Do not resist. This is a standard procedure." Marcus looked at her with fear in his eyes. "Captain, what does that mean?" Before Sarah could answer, the ship shook. The lights dimmed. Every system began shutting down one by one. Life support stayed active, but everything else went dark. Through the window, Sarah saw lights approaching. Small craft, moving with precision that made human ships look clumsy. "They're boarding us," Parks said quietly. Sarah hit the emergency beacon, but she knew it was useless. They were weeks away from any help. She looked at her crew on the bridge. "Listen to me. We stay calm. We stay together. We don't give them a reason to hurt us. Understood?" They nodded. But she could see the fear. She felt it too. The airlock opened with a hiss. The Vrin entered slowly, carefully. Sarah had imagined aliens many times in her life, but these were different from anything she expected. They stood nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and bodies covered in a gray exoskeleton that looked almost like armor. Their heads were broad and flat, with 3 eyes arranged in a triangle pattern. They moved smoothly, like they were floating rather than walking. One of them stepped forward. A device on its chest spoke in that same translated voice. "Humans, you will come with us. You will not be harmed if you cooperate. This is standard procedure for newly discovered species. We will study you, learn from you, and return you to your world. There is no need for fear." Sarah stepped forward, making herself look braver than she felt. "We are citizens of Earth. You have no right to take us against our will." The Vrin tilted its head, like a bird studying an insect. "Rights are determined by the collective. You are new. You do not understand. Come, peacefully." What choice did they have? The Vrin had weapons. Strange devices that looked like they could kill without effort. The Times, Endeavor's Promise Times, had tools, mining equipment. Nothing meant for fighting. Sarah looked at her crew and made the hardest decision of her life. Do what they say. For now. The Vrin gathered all 15 humans and moved them through corridors that seemed too large, too clean, too perfect. Everything was smooth and rounded, without sharp edges or visible seams. The ship hummed with power that Sarah could feel in her bones. This was technology, centuries ahead of Earth's best work. They were taken to a large room divided into cells. Each cell had a bed, a small bathroom, and nothing else. The walls were transparent, so everyone could see each other. The Vrin separated them, one person per cell. Sarah tried to resist, but a Vrin simply picked her up with two of its four arms and placed her inside. The barrier closed with a soft sound. Dr. Amara Okafor, their biologist, was in the cell next to Sarah's. She pressed her hands against the transparent wall. "Captain, what are we going to do?" Sarah looked around at her crew. She saw fear, confusion, and anger. Marcus was pacing in his cell like a caged animal. Lieutenant Parks was completely still, his military training showing. The others were crying or sitting in shocked silence. "We survive," Sarah said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "We watch. We learn. We wait for our chance. We watch. We watch. We watch." A Vrin appeared outside the cells. This one wore different markings on its exoskeleton. It spoke through its translation device. "I am Dr. Kelvoth, xenobiologist. I will be studying you. You should feel honored. The Vrin Collective has studied 847 species. You are number 848. This is a great moment for your kind." Sarah walked to the edge of her cell and stared at the alien. "We have a saying on Earth. You should write it down for your study. We are not animals. We are not things to be collected. And if you treat us like prisoners, we will act like it." Dr. Kelvoth made a sound that might have been laughter. "All species say something similar at first. You will adapt. They all do. In time, you will see the wisdom of the collective. Some of your people may even choose to join us, willingly. It is a better life than struggling alone on one primitive world." The alien left. The lights in the large room dimmed, simulating night. Sarah lay on the hard bed and stared at the ceiling. She could hear some of her crew crying softly. Others were talking in whispers. She thought about Earth, so far away. She thought about her daughter, who was 12 years old and waiting for her mother to come home. She thought about humanity, alone in the universe, not knowing that something else was out there. And she made a promise to herself. These aliens thought humans were just another species to catalog and study. They thought humans would accept this, would adapt, would eventually be grateful. They were going to learn how wrong they were. The first week passed slowly. Dr. Kelvoth came every day with his equipment and his questions. He took samples of blood, skin, and hair. He scanned their bodies with devices that hummed and glowed. He asked them about Earth, about their culture, about their biology. Some of the crew refused to answer. Others talked freely, hoping cooperation might earn better treatment. Sarah watched everything. She noticed patterns. The Vrin guards changed every 6 hours. Exactly. They always came from the left corridor and returned the same way. They moved carefully, like they were afraid of breaking something. When one of the crew shouted or made sudden movements, the guards stepped back instead of forward. "They're not warriors," Marcus whispered during one of the times when the guards allowed them to gather for a meal. The food was bland but nutritious, carefully calculated for human biology. "Look at how they move. They're scared of us." And Lieutenant Parks nodded slowly. He had been a soldier before joining the civilian space program. His eyes were always watching, always calculating. "They're bigger and stronger. But they don't know how to fight. When I moved too fast yesterday, the guard actually flinched." Dr. Amara Okafor was writing notes on a small piece of cloth she had torn from her uniform. The Vrin hadn't taken their clothes, just their tools and devices. "I've been studying them too. Their exoskeletons are tough, but there are joints at the neck, wrists, and where the legs connect. Those joints look vulnerable, and their eyes are sensitive to bright light. They always dim the room before entering." Sarah listened while eating the tasteless food. Around her, the 15 members of her crew were changing. The shock and fear were being replaced by something else. Anger, determination. The human survival instinct was waking up. "Captain," said Elena Rodriguez, one of their younger engineers, "I've been counting steps. From our cells to the medical room, is 237 steps. To the bathroom facility is 94 steps. The guard station is somewhere near the right corridor, because that's where they look when they talk into their communication devices. Sarah smiled for the first time since capture. Good work. Keep counting. Keep watching. Everyone. I want you to exercise. Push-ups, sit-ups, running in place. Stay strong. Why? Asked David Kim, their communications technician. What's the point? We're trapped on an alien ship in the middle of space, Parks answered before Sarah could. Because prisoners who stay active are harder to control. Because strong people are dangerous people. Because we're not going to sit here and accept this. Dr. Kelvoth noticed the change. He mentioned it in his daily report to the Vryn Council, which Sarah later learned about. The humans are behaving unusually. Most species become passive after capture. They accept their situation and wait for resolution. The humans are becoming more active, not less. They exercise constantly. They watch everything. They whisper to each other and stop talking when we approach. Recommend continued observation. The council responded with their standard wisdom. All species go through stages of adjustment. The humans will accept reality soon. Continue the study. On the 10th day, Parks made his move. During a routine transfer from his cell to the medical bay, he suddenly attacked the guard. It happened so fast that even Sarah barely saw it. Parks lunged forward and struck at the guard's neck joint, right where Amara had identified the weak point. The guard reacted with surprising speed. One of its forearms caught Parks and threw him against the wall. Parks hit hard and fell to the floor. The guard called for help, and 3 more Vryn came running. They surrounded Parks, their weapons raised. But Parks was laughing. Blood ran from his nose and his arm was bent at a wrong angle, but he was laughing. Got you, he said through the pain. Now I know. They took Parks to medical and fixed his injuries. The Vryn technology was impressive. His broken arm was healed in hours. But they also increased security. More guards were posted. The cells were reinforced. The humans were separated more carefully. Dr. Kelvoth came to Sarah's cell that evening. He looked troubled, which was hard to read on an alien face, but Sarah was learning. Captain Chen, why did your officer attack? He had to know he would lose. He gained nothing. Sarah stood and walked close to the transparent barrier. He gained information. He learned how strong you are, how fast you are, where you're vulnerable. And now we all know. That is illogical, Kelvoth said. He was injured for useless information. Not useless, Sarah said quietly. He's a soldier. He did what soldiers do. He gathered intelligence, even at personal cost. But why? You cannot escape. This ship is vast. You have no weapons. You have no knowledge of our technology. Even if you somehow left your cells, where would you go? Sarah smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. That's what you don't understand about humans, Doctor. We don't think about whether we can win. We think about whether we should fight, and you took us without asking. You made that choice for us. Kelvoth was silent for a long moment. I have studied 847 species. None have behaved like this. Your reaction is not normal. Maybe that's because you've been studying the wrong kind of species, Sarah said. You find civilizations that are peaceful, that accept their place in your collective. But Earth is different. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. War is in our history, in our culture, in our blood. We know how to survive because we've had to learn. That sounds exhausting. Kelvoth said. It is, Sarah agreed. But it also makes us very, very dangerous when we need to be. The alien left without another word. Sarah returned to her bed and looked at her reflection in the smooth wall. She looked tired, thinner. Her hair was messy, and her eyes had dark circles. But there was something else there, too. Fire. Purpose. She could see her crew in their cells, all of them visible through the transparent barriers. Marcus was doing exercises. Amara was scratching notes into her cloth with her fingernail. Parks was testing his healed arm, flexing and moving it. The others were watching, learning, preparing. The Vryn had made a mistake. They thought humans were just another species to study and catalog. They thought size and technology were all that mattered. They didn't understand that humans had spent their entire existence competing against predators, against nature, against each other. They didn't understand that the most dangerous animal is the one with nothing left to lose. Sarah lay down and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, she would start planning. Tomorrow, they would begin to turn knowledge into action. The Vryn wanted to study humans? Fine. They were about to learn a lesson their collective had never needed to teach. Some species accept captivity. Humans don't. And in 3 months, when this ship reached the Vryn outpost, Sarah Chen and her crew were going to make sure the entire galaxy knew that simple fact. The Vryn thought they were predators at the top of the food chain. They had never met Earth's apex predators before. They were going to learn the difference. 3 weeks had passed since the attack. The Vryn thought they had contained the problem. More guards, stronger barriers, less time outside the cells. Dr. Kelvoth continued his studies, confident that the humans were secure. He was wrong. Sarah had been planning every detail. She watched the guard rotations and found the pattern. Every 6 hours. Exactly. But during the rotation change, there was a 40-second gap when only 2 guards were present instead of 4. Marcus had been studying the cell barriers and discovered they ran on a central power node located somewhere in the left corridor. Amara had learned that Vryn eyes were extremely sensitive, adapted to their dimly lit homeworld. Even normal light levels that humans found comfortable made them squint, and the crew had been exercising. Every day, pushing their bodies hard. The Vryn saw this as stress relief, and allowed it. They didn't understand that humans were training. The opportunity came during a scheduled medical examination. All 15 humans were supposed to be checked, which meant moving them from their cells to the medical bay. It was the only time they were all out at once. Sarah gave the signal. It was simple. When the guard opened Marcus's cell, she coughed twice. Marcus exploded into motion. He had torn strips of metal from his bed frame over days of careful work, hiding the damage. He swung the improvised club at the guard's neck joint. The guard stumbled. Parks was ready in the next cell. When his barrier opened, he grabbed the medical scanning device and threw it at the lights overhead. Sparks flew. The room got brighter as emergency lights kicked in. The Vryn guards recoiled from the light. Their large eyes couldn't adjust fast enough. In that moment of blindness, the humans struck. Amara had saved portions of her food for days, letting them rot and ferment. She threw the mixture into a guard's face. The Vryn screamed, a horrible sound that echoed through the corridors. Its eyes were burning from the acidic mess. Elena had fashioned a rope from torn clothing. She looped it around a guard's leg and pulled. The massive alien crashed down. David jumped on its back and covered its eyes with his hands. It was chaos. It was violent. It was desperate. And it worked. Sarah ran to the control panel near the cells. She had watched the guards use it hundreds of times. The Vryn language was complex, but the interface used symbols that made sense. She pressed buttons randomly until the remaining cell barriers dropped. The rest of her crew poured out. "Engineering," Sarah shouted. "Marcus, lead the way." The crew ran. Some grabbed weapons from fallen guards. Others just ran with their fists ready. The Vryn tried to stop them, but they had never faced organized violence. Their security training was about containing accidents and preventing damage to equipment. They had no tactics for stopping determined attackers who didn't care about getting hurt. Parks shoulder-checked a guard into a wall. The alien's exoskeleton cracked with a sound like breaking pottery. Marcus found a fire suppression station and pulled the emergency lever. Foam sprayed everywhere, covering the floor. The Vryn slipped and fell. The humans, wearing soft shoes with better grip, kept running. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. Red lights flashed. The Vryn captain's voice came over the communication system, speaking in their language. Then the translation followed. Humans, stop this madness. You cannot escape. Return to your cells, and no harm will come to you. Sarah ignored it. They reached an intersection. Elena checked her mental map. Left! Engineering is left! Left a Taxiblos, left a Fessler. Left a Fessler. Left a Fessler, left a Fessler. They turned and ran straight into a security team. 10 Vryn guards with weapons raised. The humans skidded to a stop. For a moment, both sides stared at each other. Then Parks roared and charged. It was insane. It was suicidal. But the Vryn hadn't expected it. They fired their weapons, which shot some kind of stunning energy. Parks took a hit and fell, but his momentum carried him forward. He crashed into the front line of guards. The rest of the crew followed. They swarmed over the guards like angry insects. The Vryn were bigger, stronger, but they fought as individuals. The humans fought as a unit. When one guard focused on Marcus, Amara attacked from behind. When another tried to grab Elena, David kicked at its knee joint. It was brutal. Several humans took stunning blasts and collapsed, but they kept fighting. They bit, scratched, kicked, and hit with anything they could find. The Vryn fell back in confusion and fear. Sarah grabbed Parks's unconscious body and dragged him forward. Keep moving. Don't stop. They burst into engineering 5 minutes later. 4 humans were unconscious, carried by the others. Everyone else was bleeding or bruised. But they had made it. Marcus looked around the engineering bay with wide eyes. Oh my God. This is beautiful. It was. The room was massive, filled with technology that seemed like magic. Glowing conduits, floating holographic displays, machines that hummed with contained power. At the center was a column of pure light, the ship's main reactor. Secure the doors, Sarah ordered. Parks was starting to wake up from the stunning blast. His eyes were unfocused but clearing. Can you fight? Just for mine. Can you fight? Can I breathe? Parks responded. Same answer. Elena and David worked on the door controls, locking them from inside. Marcus approached the reactor carefully, his engineer's mind already working. Captain, this is antimatter containment. Very stable, very powerful. But if I remove the safety controls, it becomes very unstable, very dangerous. Can you threaten to destroy the ship without actually destroying it? Marcus grinned. It was not a sane expression. Oh yes. I can make them very scared. The door rattled. Vryn voices shouted outside, demanding surrender. Sarah walked to the communication panel and pressed what she hoped was the right button. Vryn crew. This is Captain Sarah Chen. We now control your engineering section. We have access to your reactor. If you try to take this room by force, we will destroy this ship and everyone on it. There was a long silence. Then Dr. Kelvoth's voice came through, shaking with an emotion Sarah couldn't identify. Captain Chen. Please. This is illogical. You will die too. Yes, Sarah said simply. We will. But you'll die first. And that's acceptable to us. More silence. Sarah could imagine the Vryn crew trying to understand. How could anyone choose mutual destruction over surrender? It didn't make sense in their peaceful, rational civilization. But humans had never been entirely rational. Especially when caged. The Vryn captain's voice replaced Kelvoth's. It was calmer, more controlled. What do you want? We want to go home, Sarah said. Turn this ship around. Take us back to Earth. Do that, and we'll release engineering when we arrive. That is 3 months of travel. The council must be informed. Protocols must be followed. Sarah looked at Marcus. He pressed a button. Somewhere in the ship, an alarm began wailing. The reactor's safety margin had just been reduced. "Your ship is now less safe," Sarah said. "Every hour you delay, we reduce safety more. Eventually, one small mistake will destroy us all. Your choice. Follow your protocols and die, or take us home and live." The communication went silent. Hours passed. The humans took turns sleeping and standing guard. They ate emergency rations from engineering supplies. Some tended injuries with medical supplies they found. Parks organized them into shifts, proper military style. Outside the locked door, the Vrin crew had to be planning, debating, trying to understand. They had studied 847 species. None had ever done this. None had chosen death over captivity so readily. They didn't understand that humanity's entire history was built on that choice. Every revolution, every rebellion, every fight for freedom had been humans saying the same thing: give us liberty, or give us death. The Vrin were about to learn that those weren't just words. They were a promise. The ship changed course. Sarah felt it through the deck plates, a subtle shift in the vibration that told her experienced spacers' instincts they were turning. Marcus confirmed it by checking the navigation displays in engineering. "We're heading back toward the inner system, toward Earth." The crew cheered quietly. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. 3 months. 3 months, holding engineering against 200 Vrin crew members who would be looking for any weakness, any opportunity to take it back. "We set up a proper defense," Parks said, already thinking like a soldier. "Barricades at the doors. Watch rotations. We need to eat, sleep, and stay alert. This is a siege now." They worked through the night, or what passed for night on the Vrin ship. They built barriers from equipment crates and reinforced the doors. They found more supplies, including water and food storage, for the engineering crew. Marcus explored the reactor systems carefully, learning how everything worked. Elena mapped the power grid. David figured out how to monitor the ship's internal communications. On the second day, the negotiators came. A Vrin appeared on the communication screen. Not Dr. Kelvoth or the captain, but someone new. Its exoskeleton had different markings, more elaborate. "I am Counselor Vekrin. I am trained in conflict resolution. Please, let us talk." Sarah faced the screen. She looked terrible. Her uniform was torn and dirty. Her hair was tangled. But her eyes were hard. "Talk. This situation is unprecedented," Vekrin said carefully. "In 12,000 years of the collective, we have never experienced this. Please help me understand. Why would you choose death over waiting for proper protocols?" "Because we are not asking permission to be free," Sarah said. "Freedom is not something you grant. It's something we have by right, but you were always going to be returned. After study, after learning, you would go home. This was always the plan. After you decided we were safe. After you decided we were acceptable. After you made all the choices for us." Sarah leaned closer to the screen. "On Earth, we have a word for taking people against their will. We call it kidnapping. And we don't forgive it." Vekrin made a gesture that might have been confusion. "But we meant no harm. This is standard procedure. How else can species be evaluated before joining the collective?" "You could ask," Sarah said simply. "You could have come to Earth and said hello. You could have offered trade, knowledge, friendship. Instead, you took us like animals." "That is fair," Vekrin admitted, surprising her. "I see that now. But surely this response is extreme? Violence, threats of destruction. You are acting like prisoners?" Sarah finished. "That's because we are prisoners. You made us prisoners. This is what happens." The screen went dark. The negotiations continued in fits and starts over the next week. Different Vrin came, each trying a new approach. Some offered compensation. Some tried logic. Some practically begged. Sarah refused all of it. Take us home. That's the only negotiation. But the Vryn were also trying other things. On the 5th day, they cut power to engineering. Marcus immediately went to work. Within an hour, he had rigged the reactor to provide independent power. They really don't understand engineering, he said with satisfaction. This system has redundancies on top of redundancies. We're fine. On the 7th day, they tried flooding the compartment with sleeping gas. Parks had expected this. They had already rigged breathing masks from emergency equipment. The gas made them drowsy, but they stayed awake in shifts, watching each other. On the 10th day, they tried a direct assault. The doors burst open, and 30 Vryn guards rushed in with riot shields and stunning weapons. They expected to overwhelm the humans quickly. Parks and his team were ready. They had prepared the room as a killing field. Overhead, they had rigged power conduits to drop on command. When the guards entered, Elena hit the release. Sparking cables fell among the Vryn. Their conductive exoskeletons made them perfect targets. Guards collapsed, stunned by their own ship's power. The second wave tried to advance, but Amara had mixed more of her chemical weapons. She threw containers that burst on impact, releasing fumes that burned Vryn eyes and lungs. The guards retreated, coughing and blind. Parks stood at the barricade with a metal bar in his hands. That's right. Run. Tell your friends what happens when you try to take what's ours. But the victory came with a cost. 2 humans had been hit by stunning weapons. One had a broken rib from a guard's strike. They were running out of medical supplies. Worse, they were running out of food. The Vryn had cut off all supplies to engineering. Sarah made a decision. Marcus, reduce the reactor safety margin again. Captain, we're already at 60%. Below 50 is genuinely dangerous. Do it. They need to understand we're serious. The alarms got louder. Throughout the ship, the Vryn crew felt their vessel become unstable. Sarah broadcast to the entire ship. You're at 50% reactor stability. Every day you don't feed us, I reduce it by 5%. At 20%, any accident kills us all. Your choice. The food arrived within an hour. The Vryn were learning. Dr. Kelvoth appeared on the screen that evening. He looked different. Tired, if aliens could look tired. Captain Chen, I have been analyzing your species extensively. I need to ask you something. Is this normal? For humans? Sarah considered the question. Yes and no. Most humans want peace, want quiet lives, want to raise families and be happy. But when pushed, when threatened, when trapped, yes, this is normal. We fight. Even knowing you will lose? We're not losing, Sarah pointed out. We're holding engineering on a ship with 200 of your crew. We're going home. But at what cost? Kelvoth's 3 eyes focused on her. You look exhausted. Your crew is injured. You eat barely enough to survive. You live in constant fear that we will retake engineering. Is this worth it? Sarah smiled. It was a sad smile. Yes, because the alternative is accepting we have no power over our own lives. That's worse than death for humans. That is what I do not understand. Life is precious. Why throw it away for abstract concepts like freedom? Because without freedom, we're not really alive, Sarah said. We're just existing. And humans don't accept just existing. We demand more. Kelvoth was silent for a long time. I am writing a new report. About your species. I will recommend that humanity be classified as dangerous. Not because you are evil, but because you are unpredictable. You make choices that defy logic. You cannot be contained safely. Good, Sarah said. Make sure everyone in your collective reads it. The weeks continued. The standoff became routine. The humans held engineering. The Vryn tried various methods to dislodge them. All unsuccessful. The ship continued toward Earth, crossing vast distances of empty space. Some Vryn crew members began to break psychologically. They had never experienced sustained conflict before. The constant alarms, the knowledge that death could come at any moment, the presence of violent creatures they couldn't control. It wore on them. Several requested to be placed in hibernation until the crisis ended. The humans got thinner, harder, more desperate. They rationed food carefully. They treated injuries with primitive methods. They exercised to keep their bodies strong. And they waited. Sarah watched Marcus work on the reactor one day. "You know, if we actually destroy this ship, we destroy humanity's only proof that aliens exist." "I know," Marcus said quietly. "That's the crazy part. We might be killing First Contact because they did it wrong. Would you surrender? Go back to the cells?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "Never. I'd rather die free than live as a prisoner." Sarah nodded. That was the human way. That was what the Vryn would never understand. Humans had a line they wouldn't cross. And that line was accepting helplessness. They would fight, kill, and die before they accepted being powerless. The Vryn were learning this lesson slowly, painfully. And soon, Earth would learn it too. Because when this ship arrived, when Sarah told her story, humanity would know the truth. They were not alone in the universe. And the universe needed to understand that humans were not prey. Earth appeared in the viewing screens like a blue jewel in black velvet. Sarah Chen stared at it and felt tears run down her face for the first time in 3 months. Home. They had made it home. The time's harmonious exchange times limped into the solar system, damaged and scarred. The reactor warnings had become constant background noise. Sections of the ship had been sealed off after accidents. The Vryn crew was exhausted, traumatized, barely functional. And in engineering, 15 humans still held their position. Earth's defense network detected the massive alien vessel immediately. Alarms rang in military bases across the planet. Ancient nuclear missiles were armed. New laser defense satellites powered up. Humanity looked at the alien ship with fear and weapons ready. The Vryn captain sent a message on all frequencies. "We are the Vryn Collective. We come in peace. We are returning human citizens taken in error. Please do not fire." Sarah pushed the captain aside at the communication console. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Times Endeavor's Promise **. I am broadcasting to Earth. We were taken by these aliens 3 months ago. They captured us for study. We took their engineering section and forced them to bring us home. We are still holding their ship. Repeat, we are armed and holding their ship." Silence from Earth. Then every communication channel exploded with activity. Military command, government agencies, news networks, her own company. Everyone was trying to talk at once. A calm voice cut through the chaos. "Captain Chen, this is Admiral Martinez of Earth Defense Command. Please confirm your identity and situation." Sarah provided her service codes and explained everything. The capture, the cells, the escape, the 3-month standoff. Admiral Martinez listened without interrupting. "Captain, stand by. We're bringing up our full defense grid. If they try anything, we'll destroy them." "Negative, Admiral. They're not hostile anymore. They're scared. They just want to leave. They kidnapped 15 civilians. That's an act of war." Sarah looked at her crew. They were gathered around her, listening. Parks gave her a nod. Marcus smiled. Amara squeezed her shoulder. They had survived together. They would finish this together. "Admiral, with respect, that's for the politicians to decide. Right now, we just want to come home." The negotiation took hours. The Vryn wanted to leave immediately. Earth wanted them to stay and face consequences. Sarah just wanted to get her crew off this ship. Finally, a compromise was reached. The humans would be transferred to an Earth shuttle. The Vryn would be allowed to leave. But Earth was taking detailed scans of their ship, their technology, everything. Dr. Kelvoth came to engineering one last time. He looked at the humans with his 3 eyes and made a gesture of respect. "Captain Chen, I must give you something before you leave. My report. Everything I learned about your species." He handed her a data device. "This report will be distributed throughout the collective. Every species will read it. Every world will know about humanity." "What does it say?" Sarah asked. "The truth. That humans are an apex predator species that cannot be safely contained. That you value freedom above life itself. That you will fight against any odds if you believe the cause is just. That you should never, ever, be threatened or caged." Kelvoth paused. "I am also recommending that the collective approach Earth with respect and caution. That we offer partnership, not subjugation. That we treat humanity as equals. Perhaps even superiors in certain ways." "Superiors? You have technology centuries ahead of ours." "Yes. But you have something we lost millennia ago. The willingness to fight for what you believe in, no matter the cost. In our peaceful collective, we have become soft. Weak. We can build magnificent ships and have grand philosophies. But when faced with true resistance, we fold. You have taught us that power is not just technology, it is will. And your will is stronger than our ships." The transfer happened under the watchful eyes of Earth's military. Shuttles approached the Vryn vessel carefully. Sarah and her crew walked through the corridors one last time. The Vryn crew watched them pass. Some looked relieved. Some looked terrified. Some looked curious, still trying to understand these strange creatures. As Sarah entered the shuttle, she turned back and saw Dr. Kelvoth watching from a window. She gave him a small salute. He returned it in his own way. The shuttle ride to Earth was quiet. The crew held each other and cried. They laughed. They couldn't quite believe it was over. Parks started telling jokes, bad ones, and everyone laughed too hard at them. Marcus was already talking about the technology he had seen, how it could change everything. Amara was writing notes, documenting everything for science. They landed at a military base in North America. The doors opened, and Sarah stepped out onto Earth soil for the first time in 6 months. She fell to her knees and pressed her hands against the ground. Real dirt. Real grass. Real air with real wind. Her daughter burst through the security cordon, running faster than the guards could stop her. "Mom! Mom!" Sarah caught her and held on tight, crying too hard to speak. Her crew reunited with their own families. There were tears, hugs, laughter, and joy. But there was also work to do. The world wanted answers. How had they survived? What had they learned? What did this mean for humanity? Sarah stood at a press conference the next day. Cameras from every nation pointed at her. She was cleaned up, wearing a proper uniform. But she still looked like she had been through war. Because she had. The Vryn Collective is real. Aliens are real. And they're not like we imagined. They're peaceful, advanced, and completely unprepared for humans. She held up the data device Kelvoth had given her. "This is their report on us. I've had it translated. I want everyone to hear what it says." She read the key sections. The classification of humans as apex predators. The warning to never imprison or threaten humanity. The recommendation to approach Earth with respect. The admission that humans had defeated a technologically superior force through sheer will and refusal to surrender. They took us because they thought we were primitive, weak, easy to study and control. They learned the truth. We're not the strongest species. We're not the smartest. But we might be the most stubborn, the most unwilling to accept defeat, the most dangerous. When cornered, she looked directly into the cameras. "This is the message I want to send to any other aliens out there. We are humanity. We come from Earth. We can be your friends, your partners, your allies. We want peace. We want to learn and grow and explore together. But if you try to take our freedom, if you try to make us prisoners, if you try to control us, You will learn what the Vryn learned. We would rather die fighting than live in chains. The world listened. And throughout the solar system, Earth's transmitters sent that message into space. In every direction, at maximum power, so that anyone listening would know. Humanity was here. Humanity was awake. And humanity would never bow. Weeks later, the Vryn Council received the report. They debated for days. Finally, they made their decision. Humanity would be given special status in the collective, full membership if they wanted it, but with no obligations, no requirements, no tests or studies, just an offer of friendship, trade, and knowledge sharing. And most importantly, a promise. The collective would never again take humans without permission, would never again treat them as subjects, because the cost of doing so was too high, not in ships or technology, but in the psychological damage it caused. The Vryn crew of the times, harmonious exchange times, would need years of therapy. Some would never recover. Sarah Chen retired from space service. She spent her days with her daughter, teaching her about the stars. At night, she would look up and wonder what was out there. How many civilizations? How many species? How many of them were like the Vryn, peaceful and soft? And how many of them needed to learn the lesson humanity had taught? That some species can't be caged. Some spirits can't be broken. Some wills can't be defeated. Parks visited her one evening. They sat on her porch and drank coffee. "You think they'll come back?" he asked. "The Vryn? No, but others will come." "And what are we?" Sarah smiled. "Survivors. Fighters. The species that said no when the universe expected us to say yes. The ones who reminded everyone that freedom is not negotiable." She raised her coffee cup to the stars. "Let them come. Let them all come. As friends or as foes, it doesn't matter. We'll show them the same thing we showed the Vryn. You can't predict us. You can't contain us." Parks clinked his cup against hers. "Humanity. Humanity," Sarah agreed. And somewhere in the depths of space, a civilization of peaceful scholars read the report and added a single note to humanity's file. In their language, it translated simply, "Approach with respect." They bite back.